Hi, I'm Pat Corcoran from IBM Business Continuity and Resiliency Services. Today I'm going to talk to you about some of the key things to look for from business continuity for nonprofit organizations. The first and most important area is mission. Everybody has to have a mission and everybody needs to understand it. It doesn't need to be long, it needs to be simple, quick and to the point. But that mission is your foundation of how you do things, why you do things, and how you support your constituency and all the people who provide funds to you. It helps them understand the value you bring to the table. So mission statement number one. Number two, when you look at the organizations, your people are the most important asset that everybody has. You need to understand what role they play. They need to understand what role they play in supporting the mission of your agency, your organization. And when you look at business continuity, they need to understand how the business continuity plan supports the mission and what role they play in supporting that area. That everybody plays a role when it comes to looking at risk, looking at business continuity, and supporting the overall mission of the agency. The third area is risk. When you look at risk, it's important to look at not just natural disasters. Everybody thinks of natural disasters, but those are the easy ones. There could be many other things like, just in employee personnel doing things that they shouldn't do, software or hardware. So you need to understand what risk you're most vulnerable to, which ones could have the biggest impact during different scenarios. So when you look at strategy, you look at organization, the next key thing is risk. Understanding which risks are you most vulnerable to, why, and how would you prioritize those. The fourth area is processes. So now you understand your mission, you understand the organization, you understand the risk. Which processes are the most important for you? It could be fundraising, it could be the food bank, it could be providing information to customers, it's working with the government. There's all kinds of different business processes that you need to look at and understand which ones are important, which ones would be vulnerable to which risk, and how would it impact the overall mission of your agency. And when you're looking at business processes or agency processes, you also want to look at your supply chain, because you may be dependent on organizations like telecom, like fuel, or whatever it may be, an internet company. You need to understand how they could impact your operations. And then the fifth area, you take all this information, strategy, organization, processes, and risk, bring it all together, and now you have the information where you can create a business continuity plan to help your agency ensure that their information will be available when you need it, especially during a crisis, because you are the organization that most people are looking for during a crisis. So they expect you to be available. So with all this information, you're now ready to create a business continuity plan. Enjoy. Okay, so let's look at those 5 steps. We'll just take an example, the Vermont Food Shelf. For example, mission is to support people who need food during a crisis or poverty time. So they have food that they need to provide to people. And when you look at organization, these are people who have to move the food shelf, they move the food around, they have to deliver it, they have to make sure that they can bring this food in. They're working with other organizations to make sure they've got the right food at the right times to support the people. Now the third area is risk. There's a lot of different risks. One is power, because you need the power to make sure that the food, if it's cold, needs to be refrigerated, it's maintained. Because if you don't have refrigeration for the food, it can be spoiled within a day. So power is one of the risks that you need to consider. Even logistics, to get the trucks, moving from point A to point B is important. Getting donors, where does the food come from? Where does the money come from? All these things you need to address because they're important from a risk standpoint. Processes, logistics, how to move food around, how to keep it cold, where do you store it, how do you get it from point A to B, how do you identify your donors. All these things are part of your processes that you need to think about. And with all this information now, you've identified what your mission is, you know what's important from a process standpoint, you know what risk you're most concerned about, your people understand that. With all this information, now you have the information, the knowledge to create the business continuity plan that you need to protect the business and the agency.
For the Vermont Foodbank, really going through this workshop and being able to tap into this incredible expertise I think it helped us to realize how very important it is for us to have a solid and living plan. You know, we had a disaster plan in place, and going through this workshop really helped us to realize that it's something that needs to be constantly paid attention to, that it's something that we need to be updating regularly, sharing with all of the staff at the food bank. I think taking the workshop with IBM also inspired all of us, frankly, to want to dig in more and dig deeper and do a better job of this. I talked with at least 4 food shelves, and you know, Rob was one of them. And every single one of them said, "Thank you so much. This was great. You know, we don't have a plan in place." And having a toolkit, basically, which is what you gave us, to step by step create a plan, however simple it might be at first, is something that none of them have ever had access to. So being able to provide that access to, again, this critical network out there. You know, food is a basic human right, and people need food to live. So we really need to make sure that the Charitable Food Network is prepared to respond to disaster.